Welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey, producer Chris, once again behind the scenes for today's live show. We'll take you through all the latest on the Dallas Cowboys, knowing that we should get the NFL schedule released later this Thursday. But first up, who gets paid first of the bigger two contracts? The one that the Cowboys say, oh, it's their priority. They want to get a deal done, blah, 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 blah. Who gets paid first? 4 for Dak Prescott, 88 for CeeDee Lamb. You can also vote in the pinned poll, which is a landslide vote right now. 82% say CeeDee Lamb, 18% say Dak Prescott. I think that is the correct answer. And this could go nuts for the Cowboys, but for any team, which, at minimum, Dak will be paid by somebody, next off season. No one technically has to pay Lamb until like 2 years from now, 3 years now, because there's fifth-year option, franchise tag, then he has to get paid. I would be stunned if it didn't happen by then. He's too good, and they're not on the same level of questions right there. So I myself would vote for CeeDee Lamb because I think that should get done before week 1, or else I'll be even more mad than I am right now. So vote. 4 for Dak Prescott, 88 for CeeDee Lamb. Ecuador man AOG says $2, a super chat. Why do so many Cowboys fans seem okay with washed Zeke? 2 routes that I view it. Number 1 is, they love Zeke originally. They hope they could still get original Zeke, which I don't think is a remotely realistic outcome. He's not going to be that best back in the NFL at this stage of his NFL career. There are some who are like, I just need short yardage stuff, and that's good enough for me. I would argue, hey, you could have signed a better back like Zach Moss, who's even better in short yardage. The latter answer I at least understand. Even though I think the correlation causation don't match, the Cowboys were not that good on the ground last year. They struggled, especially relative to previous years, although their playoff results were about as good as they've been the past 3 or 4 years. They've always been a pretty bad playoff ground team. Would like to see that changed. But my issue, and I made this point before, I don't want to go too far into it, Zeke can't be your week 1 back. If Zeke is your week 1 lead starting running back, it's not going to work. It's just not. Hasn't worked in like 4 years. In best case, hasn't worked in 2 years. Why would I think it'd be different? That's my issue. It's my issue. Things he can do well: short yardage, pass blocking, all still true. Who gets paid first? 4 for Dak Prescott, 88 for CeeDee Lamb. The vote's now swinging more in favor of Prescott, by the way. 22% for Dak, 78 for Lamb. I would cast my vote with CeeDee Lamb, but you guys vote in the comments, 88 and 4, and in the pin poll of today's video. I am curious how you guys vote on this one, because we'll talk about Sam Williams later on in today's show. And I am curious if you guys have the same feelings that I do here. Is Sam Williams entering this year on the hot seat? Y for yes, N for no. Ecuador man says yes, yes, yes. William Cook says yes. Rusty Flores, Don Wilson, all typing in their Y's for yes. Daniel M says yes. Ivan, Colin, Peter, Vince, Nicholas, Jag. Brandon's the first no. That's a heavy vote on the yes side there. So we are on the same page then. I do think Sam Williams is very much on the hot seat. I don't think the Cowboys got the type of year from Williams they were expecting last season, and they are also hoping for better results in year 3. And with Mike Zimmer in charge, he'll put people in the doghouse. He will. And if Williams is jumping off sides again, he's going to be in that doghouse real fast. From not Jeremy Chugg's burner, Cowboys no longer ride horses. We attack from the sky. Hashtag washed Zeke. Hashtag BBL Drizzy. We will come back to that last hashtag in a minute, but as a reminder, the largest individual super chat on today's show does get to pick a future segment here on the Cowboys Report, although I have not heard from the last 2 winners, so I'm going to say future live show, because we'll have to play catch-up at some point there. But that is for a future live show. Right now, not Jeremy Chugg's burner leads the way with $4.99. Now, back to his hashtag, who's winning? D for Drake, K for Kendrick. I think there is a correct answer where someone doesn't really have any dog in this fight. Who's winning the great rap battle of 2024? D for Drake, K for Kendrick. I think it is undoubtedly Kendrick. I know, Chris, you have not been paying very much attention to it. Have you been paying attention to Allstone a little bit? I think it's Kendrick by far. This is Stone, our new hire, by the way, behind the scenes.
But kind of what we talked about. I mean, roast-wise, it's definitely Kendrick. But as far as what you want to listen to in the car, what's got, you feeling groovy, that's probably Drizzy.
See, people are going to call me being a hater here. I don't like Drake's music all that much. It borders too much on TikTok music for me. Like, it's just not. As I told you guys, it's not hip hop. It's hip hop, and that's not as good for me. So I think it's Kendrick by a good margin. I think his lyrics and his disses are way better. The last response from Drake was like the saddest diss ever. At the end, he just has like no energy. It was all very, very strange to me. So get your votes in. Who you got winning? D for Drake, K for Kendrick. From Lee Key, something. Could we have gotten a fourth for Sam Williams, then draft a running back? I don't know, maybe. Williams has shown flashes in his first 2 years. Normally, if you're shopping a player during the draft, you're not getting maximum value back. I also would say I think this team still wants to get him and prove that he can still play, or be a high-end player, I should say. Not that still can't play part. I think they want him to still be a piece. And they are okay giving him this preseason camp to show that. But it's a bit uncertain. Gatlin, $5 super chat, now takes the lead for the largest individual super chat to pick a segment. If Dak doesn't get paid, does CeeDee stay? I wouldn't want to put my contract on the line with an unknown situation. In theory, I think Lamb gets paid first. And, when you're making, let's just say, $33 million a year, you're probably okay putting your contract on the line with uncertainty at the quarterback spot. At that point, the long-term score that goes along with the guarantee money provides is worth whatever potential uncertainty on the field you end up having there. I know Dak and Lamb are very tight. They both want to play with each other. At a certain point, the business, in this case, the big old guaranteed contract, outweighs the potential football field risks there. So I think Lamb would get paid before we know a final verdict on Dak Prescott, and that's okay, I think, in the end with Lamb. We will break down the Cowboys roster / depth chart on today's show. So rate the Cowboys roster. Scale it for me from 1 to 99. It's Madden style. 1, obviously, it's probably not going to be very many ones in there. 99, it's like the turned off salary cap, traded for all the players and made them punters and signed up these big cheap deals and then put them back on the proper roster. Totally rigged it there. Madden style, what should this Cowboys roster be? Juicebox says 86. Brandon J says 83. Frank says 75. Vince says 83. Ishmael says 84. Don says 75. Mark says 81. Ecuador Man says 65. And with Zeke 60. Oh boy. 81, 80, 87. There's a 1. 78, 84, 85, 84, 75, 77. So in the upper 70s, mid 80s for most of the answers. I think that's pretty fair. We've got a 91 in there, too. And a 55, back-to-back. Evens out right. Mark, aloha. JJ is all over the place. We will be 10-6. That's what I think this team will end up being. And that should be enough to get you in the postseason. Probably not going to win the division, so the NFC East curse can continue of not being able to repeat ever in that division. Everyone will say, this is the year, and every year it doesn't quite materialize there. Look, I agree. I think this will be a playoff team, but it'll be a lower-end playoff team, and they'll probably go one and done in the postseason. 10-6, they'll probably get like the 49ers again in the opening round. Right? Don't we just see that one happening? Now, the goal right now is to get to 100 likes before we start today's show. As always, the more likes we get on a video, the more likely it is to be shown to YouTube. The more we grow and build new studios, hire new people, expand everything here at Chat Sports. So simple, free, easy, something you should do on every single video, unless you're mad at me, then it's fine, I guess, is to just like the video. We're always going for that 50% like ratio. And we're not quite to 50%. We're close. We're about 19 likes away here, but need to get to that full 100 mark. A couple super chats coming in here as well. Ecuador man AOG before the draft needed 2 running backs. Got broke Zeke. Good. WTF. Yeah, I mean, I would have ranked running back as this team's number 1 need going into the draft. Adding Zeke doesn't really change that need for me. I would like to find somebody via cuts. There's not many good free agents left. Or more likely the trade market. This team also makes like 6 moves in offseason. So we have very limited available moves left. You can do as many as you want, but they only make a few. So we're getting kind of light on that one. For Mark, what's scary is everyone in the NFC East is improving. You know, most teams can say, no, we got better this offseason. Only the teams that are obviously tanking say, nah, we got worse, or, lost a bunch of players like the Ravens kind of did as well. But even they added Derrick Henry, kept Justin Madubuike. Tough to say the Cowboys got better on paper. Really tough to make that argument. And it's really frustrating when ownership comes out and says, hey, we won the offseason last year. They traded 2 day 3 picks for players, signed nobody of note, and said, we won the offseason, and look where it got us. It's not winning the offseason. That's doing the bare minimum. Very frustrating to me. Coming up on today's live edition of the Cowboys Report, some rumors and news, contractual updates included there. Some Cowboys cut candidates following this year's NFL draft. A mailbag, 2 ways to get on the show. Use hashtag Cowboys or Super Chat to skip the line altogether. And we'll run through the Dallas Cowboys depth chart. All that's coming up here live on the Cowboys Report. We are getting closer to our goal of 1,000 subscribers on the Cowboys Report Instagram. So if you are on IG, give us a follow over there at Cowboys Report IG. I'll put the link in the comments and the description of today's show. We begin with some contract updates here for the Cowboys. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler on Sunday dropping some new information there on both Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. Here's what Fowler said. There, meaning the Cowboys, negotiations so far with Dak have been described to me as passive or even non-existent. There really hasn't been anything going on, so their actions are saying that maybe they have to sit on his $61 million cap hit this year, then figure it out later, then they'll do that. By the way, it's not $61 million. He's just using the wrong number. I don't know. But it's not. He continued saying they've been fiscally responsible, not really spending any money, so they know they have to address this at some point in the offseason. So to recap, nothing new. Nothing new on that front. We have known there have not been very many contract talks at all between Dak and Lamb, or Dak and the Cowboys, Lamb and the Cowboys, Mike and the Cowboys. More, by the way, on CeeDee Lamb from Jeremy Fowler. Quote, they're going to pay somebody eventually. My sense is they need to figure out the Prescott situation first before they can get to Lamb. The market is pretty well set now at wide receiver. If true, this is stupid. Waiting to pay a player who you want to pay, who you have plans to pay, is a bad process. We have seen this time and time and time again when it comes to the Cowboys organization. They drag their feet. They take sometimes years to get a deal done. They did it with Tank Lawrence, did it with Dak Prescott the first time around. The cost only goes up. The Cowboys have made the public comment before. They don't want to be the one to set the market. And what ends up happening is agents know they will eventually get a really good offer later on. And they don't tend to take the earlier offers because they know they can wait. The Cowboys display this big, tough, display of power and then cave. So agents know that they just got to wait that process out. And remember, Jerry has said they are the ones waiting. It's on him and the Cowboys. If you don't like the pace of it, which I don't, they're the ones where they want to see more leaves fall. And multiple leaves have fallen, and you could have made CeeDee Lamb the highest paid receiver in NFL history the day after the NFL season ended as soon as he was eligible, which you could have done it last year, by the way, even. and he already would have been a barely top 3 highest paid wide receiver. Already would have dropped, and he probably wouldn't have been top five within a calendar year. Instead, they're waiting and costing themselves more money and their precious pie in the short term. Got some more thoughts here on Lamb, what the market might look like. But first, who gets paid first? 4 for Dak Prescott, 88 for CeeDee Lamb. It's the pinned comment on today's video. The ad comes, ignore it. Take advantage instead, go vote 4 or 88. I would work harder to get the CeeDee Lamb deal done first. Because at this point, there should be no doubts there. I get if you have doubts about Dak and that situation there. I have yet to see very many people who go, yeah, we like Lamb, but we're not sure he's a legitimate number 1 wide receiver. That's as close to a consensus as you can get in this industry, right? The highest paid wide receiver market for now looks like this. A.J. Brown makes $32 million. Tyreek Hill makes $30 million flat. Amon-Ra St. Brown makes actually $30.005 million, so we did not round that up. 2 players have gotten record-setting money at the wide receiver market position. And that's this offseason alone, and they might not be done. Justin Jefferson is due for a new deal. Jamar Chase is due for a new deal. Maybe that's next year, but still. Brandon Ayuk making a big deal about getting paid as well. The reality is, we're no longer just looking at being the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. For Jefferson, Chase, maybe Ayuk, and Lamb as well, we are now in the highest paid non-quarterback market. Because it was Nick Bosa and Chris Jones and then Tyreek Hill. And A.J. Brown beat Chris Jones. And Amon-Ra St. Brown was just behind those guys. At this point, especially if you wait till after Jefferson gets signed, you're staring down the barrel of $35 million for CeeDee Lamb. Seriously. And it could have been 27 a year ago, 30 a couple months ago. Again, the longer you wait, the more expensive it is, and then this team will complain about their pie, even though they just let half of it sit out and get rotten and had to throw it away. Bad process from the Cowboys. More to come on today's Cowboys Report, which is made possible by Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. NBA playoff action is underway, and there's no reason not to try to make some money with Prize Picks. You can do NBA, MLB, of course, NHL, even some season-long NFL stuff that has been available for a little bit here. Here's what I always advise with Prize Picks. Take the flex play. It's not the same payout, but it helps cover you in the event you get one wrong. I'm really good about getting 2 out of 3 right, 3 out of 4 right, etc. So the flex play does have a little bit lower payout, but a better chance of winning. Here's my NBA action tonight Prize Picks. Jalen Brunson, more than 48 points, rebounds, and assists. It is an Obi Toppin revenge game. He's played very well as of late for the Pacers. That Demon line, 11.5, higher payout, by the way. He's hit 3 games in a row. And Anthony Edwards, I think, will continue to feast against the Nuggets. Give me the more than 29.5 for him. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Link will be in the comments and the description of today's show. Let's talk trade rumors here on the Cowboys Report. Najee Harris now getting linked to the Cowboys in various trade rumors and ideas and theories. The one that several of you guys tagged me in, thank you, was from this guy, John Frisella, however you pronounce the SC there, for an Italian guy. He is a fake NFL insider who had claimed, per my Pittsburgh source. And by the way, every time he has a claim, it's local source every time. Okay, buddy. Says the most likely landing spot for a Najee Harris trade is the Dallas Cowboys. The Steelers did decline Najee Harris's 5th-year option, which does put correct uncertainty around his long-term future in Pittsburgh. But John is not a credible source here. This is the same guy that said Brandin Ayuk had demanded a trade. His agent said, no, I didn't. And John still clings to him being right and the agent was lying, which doesn't really make any sense there because that information always ends up getting out, by the way. Now claims that Joe Burrow's surgery was to make sure the bone grows, which he had ligament surgery, so he's not credible. He's just not it's just not true. But I do want to explore the idea because many of you have brought it up as well as a possible option. Fans had a trade idea. The Cowboys get Najee Harris, a one-year rental of Najee Harris, mind you, and the Steelers get a 2025 fourth-round pick. Now, in theory, that's a later fourth-round pick. But would you do this trade? Would you say, yeah, I'm going to send my future for a year of Najee Harris? Y for yes, N for no. Go ahead and sound off for me in the comments section of today's video. I would not. To me, this is a pretty good overpay. And by good, I mean like in terms of how much, not like it's a good thing to overpay. I'm not interested in doing that. That's too much for me. Harris has been a 1,000-yard rusher every single year of his NFL career, and that does have some value. It's also been on an immensely high workload. He has been 250 carries every year, and he gets you about 4 yards per carry. Would he be the best running back on your roster? Absolutely. Does that mean you should flip a fourth-round pick for 1 year of Najee Harris? No. Could have flipped a fourth-round pick for a younger guy with more team control. I think Harris was limited by the Steelers' offensive line and the scheme and everything right there. I also don't think he's that available because Pittsburgh does like Jaylen Warren, and then it's Cordero Patterson. Like, they don't have another running back. Patterson's going to be more of a return man for them at this stage in his NFL career. They don't have a back. They don't have that number 2 back on the roster. It's DeJuan Edwards, the UDFA, and Cowboys legend Aaron Shamplin. Like, they don't have the ability to flip Najee Harris at the moment. So they might do it for a fourth. I think that's an overpay. I don't think they want to trade Harris, and I don't think Dallas wants to give up anything more than a fifth-round pick, at least for now. We are past the 188,000 subscriber mark. Thank you guys so much. Now we're inside of 12K away from 200K. I want to get there before week 1 of the NFL season. Hit that sub button in exchange for more free Cowboys videos. Here we go again. The Bleacher Report really wants the Cowboys to trade Brandin Cooks away. They continue to put Cooks in all the different trade for a wide receiver. How about Brandin Cooks ideas? I will give them a little bit of credit here. It's a good offer. It's, again, the Steelers, a 2025 third-round pick for Brandin Cooks, a lot more than what you gave up to get him, and what you got for Amari Cooper, by the way. So would you do this trade? I've got my thoughts on it here in a minute. T for trade, P for pass. Would you do that trade for Brandin Cooks? Now, that's a pretty quality trade offer. I was fully expecting more of let's give him a 6th-round pick, which I was never going to do. It is a quality trade offer. Here's my question, and this kind of determines the answer. What are the Cowboys trying to do? If you are rebuilding, if you don't want to care that much about winning games right now, you do that trade. I don't think this version of Cooks at his age is worth a 3rd-round pick. A top 90 pick. That's a pretty premium asset to give up. And you could, be worse this year, but you're getting assets for guys that aren't going to be on your team the next 2-3 years. That is what a smart rebuilding team does, because Cooks' numbers have not been the same the same impact that they were. Now, I think he was a couple plays away from me, about 800 yards. Was not that far off. And he's still your second best wide receiver by a pretty big margin. So if you want to win, even as good as that trade offer is, it's hard to trade Brandin Cooks. Because if I want to win games now, I can't trot out Jalen Tolbert and Jalen Brooks or Kevontae Turpin as my other top 3 wide receivers alongside CeeDee Lamb. I don't have the speed. I don't have even the short areas. I kind of need Cooks out there as my wide receiver too. Otherwise, we're getting real close to it's, remember that rebuilding year? Not rebuilding year, the receiver by committee year? You got Lamb, which is better, and then not much else behind him. That's what would worry me, because if Lamb goes down, knock on wood, even with Cooks, this team is bad. Or this team is poor wide receiver. Without him, it becomes the worst wide receiving core in the entire NFL. Predict the Cowboys record for me in 2024. I'll give some shout-outs here after I sip some water. Let's see. 12 and 5. 8 and 9. Ooh, 12 and 5 again. 9 and 7. Mark's got 10 and 6. 11 and 6 in there. 10 and 7. $5 from Mark, tying the lead for largest individual super chat. I guess the tiebreaker will go to him having other supers involved in there right now, so we'll give the lead to Mark. But 5 is the number to beat to pick a segment on our next live show, or future live show, I should say. Mark says, this team reminds me of most of Romo's teams. One good wide receiver, a solid offensive line, a suspect defense, and no ground game. With the exception of 2009, that was Romo, now it's Dak. I still got the meme of it's the hard to swallow pills, and it's the Dak Cowboys and the Romo Cowboys are the same team. And sometimes it's a little bit better, sometimes a little bit worse. I think that's still true, because I do agree with this, Mark. You had at one point 3 good receivers, then one of them got hurt, and then one of them got traded for pennies on the dollar, and is still good in Cleveland, by the way. And I think we really overlook how, not everyone, many of you do, that defense was bad down the stretch this year. I'm hoping they'll be better, but starting with that Seahawks game, they were legitimately a bottom 5 defense in the NFL. It was a nightmare. They got beat a lot through the air and on the ground. From We Don't Wife These 304s, who's worse, Broussard or Craig Carton? Probably Craig Carton. Broussard at least has some decent NBA takes, not very many of them. They're all just hot take artists, by the way. But Craig Carton just says stuff to say stuff, and will also just absolutely make things up. Like, Broussard will be wrong. Carton's out there just lying about things, and that annoys me. When he said he was told Jerry was going to sell. No, not true. Or when he said Cowboys radio was something. No, they weren't. Local media was never talking about Dak to the Raiders. Not true. As a reminder, the largest super chat on today's show, right now it's $5 from Mark in the lead there, will be, get to pick a segment on a future live show. If you actually email me, the last 2 winners haven't. So that's why it's future live show, because at some point we're going to have to play some catch up there. From CBC 183, perhaps I don't understand this well. What's the upsides to not re-signing Dak? We did kind of do this as a video, by the way, on the channel of like the positives to it. The main positives are, especially if you think this Cowboys team needs that top 5 quarterback, especially as constructed, you can try to find that guy. It is easier to win with a rookie contract quarterback if that is the right one. It frees up a ton of salary cap space, a little bit more long-term than short-term. The downside, of course, is you get stuck in quarterback hell, and you're trotting out not good options. It's the Quincy Carters, Hutchinsons, etc., and the rest of your roster is still good enough to win like 6 or 7 games. So you're not good enough to get that top 5 pick to take the quarterback, and you're not bad enough to do that. You're not good enough to win, even be in playoff games. They're kind of like dangerous from the negative side of it, in terms of like, it could be like bad spot to be. But there are benefits, mostly salary cap savings, and trying at least to upgrade. Elite 360, do the electric riff intro one more time. Do you want to do it before the? I think it just means the short intro. That's what I would assume. I won't do the entire minute-long intro, but we can do the short intro. I'm fine with that. We'll do the short intro before we go to the next segment here. That's fine. So it's a unique super chat. Can't say we've seen that one very often there, but appreciate that, Elite 360. So we'll get to some surprise cut candidates here momentarily after we play the little intro video again. Just for you, Elite 360. Here we go. Today's Cowboys Report will break down some of the surprise cut candidates for Dallas after the 2024 NFL Draft. The Cowboys have roughly $5 million in salary cap space. It's not really an issue. That already includes paying of their rookies, like projected rookie payments, so don't worry too much about that one. Also, they free up a bunch of money if they ever pay Lamb or Dak. So money's not an issue right now, despite what they might tell you. There are actually a couple open roster spots for Dallas, but some players might be a bit more on the bubble following this year's draft. So name a player who you think ends up getting cut by the Dallas Cowboys. Doesn't have to be a surprise. Technically, not everyone on this list is a surprise cut candidate. Some obvious ones. Some might be more trade options there. But name a player who you think gets cut. First up is Damone Clark. And again, this one might be more of like a surprise trade candidate, although Dallas didn't add the volume of linebackers that I thought they might. Now, you save most of his $1.05 million cap hit if you release Damone Clark. And he was this team's leading tackler in 2023, which, as a reminder, isn't always a great way to evaluate a football player. And there were moments of Clark having some success. I think he will be better if he gets to be an off-ball linebacker as a weak side linebacker than having to be the off-ball middle linebacker. That is I think the better fit for Damone Clark. But I also think DeMarvion Overshown is going to be that weak side, that will linebacker, as opposed to the Mike. I think that's Eric Kendricks and probably Maurice Leofau behind him. So if you get great results from Leofau, Kendricks, and Overshown, and one of your UDFAs or like a Damian Wilson press, or you add somebody else, that could put Clark a little bit on the bubble. Next up is Sam Williams. This would be a surprise. He's due $1.7 million. That's not very much money. You could save $1.19 if you cut or trade him after June 1st. My concern with Sam Williams is I think he's going to be challenged in a good way by Mike Zimmer. But what happens if he doesn't respond to that challenge in the correct way? The sacks went up. The tackles went up from 2022 to 2023. The tackles for loss got cut in half. The pressure rate, which is a bit more stable year over year, went down slightly, and the penalties went up. Mike Zimmer has a doghouse. He will put players in that doghouse. You got Micah Parsons as your number one pass rusher. Tank Lawrence is going to play like he's a great fit for the Mike Zimmer scheme. I think Marshawn Nealon as a run stopper is a really good fit for the Mike Zimmer scheme. So if Sam Williams gets himself in the doghouse a little bit and is making mistakes in camp in the preseason, gets himself in legal trouble again, then I could see the Cowboys kind of being over it because the defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, is also no longer there. So is Sam Williams on the hot seat for you entering this preseason training camp timeframe? Y for yes, N for no. It's the pinned comment on today's video. So go vote, especially if the ad comes here on YouTube. Deshaun Wright, simply put, has not lived up to his top 100 pick status. I really hope that changes and that I look dumb for hating on that pick as much as I did. I am not confident that that is going to change. And with a $1.26 million cap hit, potential savings over $1 million of it, feels like he is very much in danger of not making this Cowboys roster. When they were decimated by injuries at corner, not last year but the year before that, they were signing Xavier Rhodes off the practice squad or off the free agency streets and signing him in there. They weren't even playing Deshaun Wright. They've already moved on from Kelvin Joseph. I would not be surprised if Deshaun Wright was next. Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland, Jordan Lewis, and I think Kalen Carson are roster locks. CJ Goodwin probably makes it for special teams. Does Israel Mukuamu play corner or safety? He's also on the bubble at this time. Deshaun Wright has done some decent things on special teams, but I also wouldn't call him necessarily like some special teams superstar. And when you get to this point in the career, you kind of are hoping for more than just some defensive, or more than just special teams. He's fine there. Helps him make the roster. But if Goodwin's going to make it, that's 5 corners. Would they carry 7 to 8, including Mukuamu? I don't know. And that's why I think it could be a battle between Deshaun Wright and the next name on this list, Eric Scott Jr., who the Cowboys traded up for last year, giving up a future 5th-round pick to get that early 6th-round pick. He did not play in year 1. He redshirted. Plenty of theories that he was a Dan Quinn-focused draft pick. It's a massive camp and preseason for him. Because if Mike Zimmer says, I don't like this guy that much, he's easy to cut or trade, maybe to Washington in particular. I would, barring injuries, I'm going to bet that one of these two guys makes your 53-man roster. And maybe you get one of the practice squad too. But pick one to keep. NW for Nashawn Wright, ES for Eric Scott. Cooper Rush is on this list. And I think in particular, the rule changes for NFL teams, where now you are going to be allowed to make that emergency third quarterback available from the practice squad, as opposed to only being available on the active roster. I think it's going to negatively impact a lot of quarterbacks out there. Because a lot of teams are going to say, well, we'll put them on the practice squad, it'll be fine. So if you're not worried that much about them getting sniped, or in the case of Cooper Rush, you're a vested veteran, and you don't have to go through waivers, you say, hey, we're going to put you on the practice squad, be our emergency third QB, that makes sense. You save a bunch of money by cutting him, you still pay him some of it, was owed guaranteed, and he gets this practice squad checks, etc., plus the game day call-up checks. Cooper Rush has been he's been a good bus driver. And you've seen that over the course of an NFL career. When you're not playing the Eagles or the best teams, he can go out there, guide the offense, mostly be accurate. He's not nearly as accurate as Dak Prescott is. But he's also not going to be a playoff caliber quarterback. He's a bus driver. And you want a smart football bus driver as one of your backups. But if and hopefully when Trey Lance plays great and in the preseason earns that number 2 role, they'll keep Lance as quarterback too. And then you could try to get Cooper Rush down to the practice squad. Now, Ezekiel Elliott will be wearing number 15 this year. You can get his jersey by going to chatsports.com/Zeke15 jersey. The default one on Fanatics is still the 21, but you can find the 15. You just got to click the drop-down options. That link, chatsports.com/Zeke jersey, will take you to it. So check the comment section and the description if you want to get the Zeke Elliott 15 jersey in time for week 1 this year, because he is not on the surprise cut candidate list. They guaranteed him too much money. He ain't going to get cut. Josh Ball. You guys very much know how I feel about Josh Ball, and we don't need to rehash it today. But to make note, he's due $1.04 million. All these numbers per over the cap, by the way. And you save almost all of that what they cut. He played a little bit in the preseason. Wasn't that bad. Actually was decent in the ground game, although a lot of those were very much against third-string defensive linemen. We all remember the Texans game, I believe it was, where he almost got Dak killed, almost cost them the game, and they had to flip somebody else in there. It ended up saving the game, and they won that game in the end. Offensive line depth is more volume-filled than previous years. That also puts Matt Waletzko on the roster. He has size, he has talent, athletic ability, but he can't stay healthy. The shoulders have been a significant issue in his time in the NFL. It saved basically all of his money by cutting him. It's just some leftover signing bonus stuff. There's no more guaranteed base salary things from that perspective. He wasn't as good in the preseason, but also was working ahead of Josh Ball, so getting better offensive linemen. Hasn't played much in the regular season either. The numbers don't add up, and that's probably a good thing for the offensive line, because Guyton, Smith, Beebe, Martin, Steele, I would also argue Bass and Hoffman are going to make this team. That's 7. They like to put draft picks on here. That's 8 with Nathan Thomas. They paid Udoga not enough that he couldn't be cut, but that he probably makes it. That's 9. So then it's Awesome Richards, a 5th-round pick last year. Matt Waletzko, Josh Ball. Math ain't mathin' for those guys. I think at best, barring injuries, one of these 2 players makes the team. So pick one to keep. JB for Josh Ball, WM for Matt Waletzko. Get those predictions or responses, I should say, in the comments of today's show. This one might not surprise too many. Peyton Hendershot. Since he was the surprise cut candidate last year. In fact, had John Stevens not torn his ACL, he was probably going to get cut. In the end, the injury kind of saved him, and he didn't do a whole lot in the end. As a former UDFA, there's almost zero guaranteed money left on his contract. It's some leftover signing bonus stuff he already got. The tight end room has options. Jake Ferguson is tight end 1. Luke Schoonmaker is tight end 2. Hendershot, John Stevens. I think if we keep the trend of a UDFA about to make the rosters almost 2 years in a row, go back to Blake Jarwin. Brevin Spann-Ford stands out there. They gave Princeton Fant some run, mostly on special teams this past season. Do you want your tight end 3 to be a pass catcher? Or do you want him to be a blocker? If they really want the blocker angle, it's not bode well for Hendershot. Now, if and when the Cowboys make cuts, even if it's just roster cut down time, we will have a video for you. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. You got to put Deuce Vaughn on here. There's a lot of running backs. Frankly, of your 7 backs on the roster, one of them, I think, is actually guaranteed a roster spot. Now, Deuce Vaughn didn't play much in 2023. Needs to find a role. I think the role they used him in is like late game grinder, which was kind of like, well, it was how it was going to be outside of a package for him. That's not a good role for him. Need him to make an impact on special teams, which he has not done so far. That's a big issue. When you're RB3 or 4 and you don't help on special teams, tough to find a role for you. Vaughn did not produce very well last season. The running ability was the yards were terrible. The situations were also bad. It was almost always end of game scenarios behind a shaky offensive line. It's never going to go well. Did flash some as a pass catcher, which I don't think should be overlooked. But look at this running back room. Ezekiel Elliott, with the way it's kind of structured, is going to be on the team. Everyone else up for grabs. Can Deuce Vaughn carve out that third down pass catcher role? If he can, he'll make it. Maybe they want to use him more on returns. They want 2 guys, Vaughn and Turpin, back there. But he's got to earn a spot. And that also goes, I think, for the best running back on the roster. And that's Rico Dowdle. I think he is the best football player, the best back right now at this stage in their career. Clearly not career-wise. On the team. But look at his contract. $1.26 million, $200,000 guaranteed. That is not the type of contract that is given to a player that says, you know what? This guy's clearly going to make the roster. No doubts about it. He is locked in to this football team. There is a scenario in which the Cowboys go, we're fine. He got $200,000 guaranteed. Royce Freeman, meanwhile, got $65K. So neither of those guys are guaranteed a spot. Dowdle, I thought, played pretty well in a smaller role this past season. I would have liked to give him a bigger role as well, especially with the way he played on third downs and short yards. I thought he was more effective at times than Tony Pollard was. Dallas didn't give him a chance. He's always been a bit banged up too. No guarantee Dowdle makes this team, even though I think he's the best back right now on the roster. It is mailbag time here on the Cowboys Report. Couple ways to get on the show. Use hashtag Cowboys or Super Chat to skip the line altogether. Mark has now retaken the lead for the upcoming segment here on today's show, or for a future segment, excuse me. Some other Super Chats we want to get to that don't quite fit into the mailbag. CT says it's a cut. Don't do that. Deep Cowboys lore, or Cowboys Report lore there. You did mess it up too, but that's fine. It doesn't matter because we have to edit it anyway. That will happen when we were doing the instant reaction shortcutting on our live draft coverage, and Sperry talked over me, and I said, James will cut it in that part of it, and then he just said, I thought it was funny, so I left it in. Mark, $2. He also clarified with what the Super Chat was meant to be. He said it hit send before with the question. It's okay, Mark, I got you. I think Micah will move back to linebacker. There will be some moments he plays linebacker, but I don't think this team would have added DeMarvin or got Overshown back healthy, added Kendricks and drafted Maurice Leofau in the third if the plan was make Micah off-ball linebacker. They lost. Do we even count losing a linebacker this year with putting Marquise Bell back at safety and Van Der Esch that year? I don't think so. They lost 2 edges, only added Marshawn Nealand. The vast majority of his reps will come as a passer. You'll see him moved around, though. He will line up over the A-gap as a blitzer. I promise you that. So again, use hashtag Cowboys or Super Chat to get on the show. As a reminder, the largest individual Super Chat on today's show from Mark right now with $10, it leads by a penny, will get to pick a future live show segment. The last two winners have not told me what they wanted to do, so we might be playing catch-up at some point in the future there. But get your questions in via hashtag Cowboys or by Super Chatting. From Three-Way Cato, hoping Cato is not something like dirty that I don't understand. I wasn't going to be in a lot of trouble there. Hey, Tom, watching about 5 years now. Always love the content. Was live on Instagram with Jalen Brooks a few weeks back. So seems like a great guy. I think he's a real shot of being the number 3/number 4 receiver for the Cowboys. How would you feel if he gets a good shot? Anyways, season's only 4 months away. First off, appreciate that, my friend. Thank you very much. I think there is a chance for Brooks to be maybe not receiver 3, but he could easily be wide receiver 4. And injuries happen, he gets bumped up. Right now, I got him at wide receiver 5. I think that wide receiver 3 battle is a battle. I think Jalen Tolbert, with the draft investment, with the production previously used, I think he's your likely favorite, behind Lamb, behind Cooks. Turpin might still only be viewed as a gadget guy /slot guy, So if you want another outside receiver, Jalen Brooks stands out. Now, I am very intrigued by Ryan Flournoy, the speedy SEMO wide receiver. Small school player, though, probably going to need some adjustment time. Maybe Jalen Cropper can contribute as a nickel, or Tavis Bryant. I'm not going to assume anything there, but who knows? You know, Racy McMath could be like wide receiver 6 and be a core special teamer for you. We'll see if any of the other young guys emerge in camp / the preseason. Now, this one and our next one came in via Super Thanks. It is a feature on YouTube that allows you to donate outside of live video. So you super chat on a live show, you super thanks on any normal video. Click the thanks icon, edit your message, and send in whatever message, question you have. Any super chat equals a shout out. From Mighty Ant, we don't call, we wait till they call us. Steven's way of being a GM. This was in reference to my running back trade targets video. And that is what bothers me. You know, your ownership, your decision makers, your deciders have come out and said, we weren't making calls during free agency. We were letting the calls and agents and players come to us. And that's fine if your goal was to win the deal. If your goal was to make your team better, it's not going to happen that way. You have to be willing sometimes to lose the battle to win the war. That's not how Steven in particular wants to operate, and it does bother me a lot. It truly does. So what is your confidence level in Stephen Jones running the Cowboys? Because it's really him more so than it is Jerry these days. Scale it for me from 1 to 10. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. Jordan Gonzalez, thanks, Tom, for all the coverage of the years. Will Dallas start using Ferg like KC does Travis Kelce? Catching or running, he bangs on short yardage. Love that line. I don't know if it's probably not ever going to be full Kelce. That's probably asking for a bit too much, but I was very impressed by Fergie last year. I think he exceeded all expectations. What bothered me the most among many, many things in that playoff game, we spent all week saying, hey, Green Bay lacks linebackers, they lack safeties. You've got to get the ball to Ferguson over the middle. Take those shots over the middle, be aggressive, let Dak and Fergie cook. And they ignored him for the first half of the game. They didn't go to him until late in the game, and then he played well. Then the offense got going too. I think Ferguson should be used right now as your number 2 playmaker on offense in the passing game, maybe even over Brandin Cooks. From Mark, Jerry Jones runs this team with 0 anticipation of the cap going up. It's a year-by-year thing. I don't like Dak, but to win now, you redo his contract, sign a few guys like Hinkins, add 1 or 2 solid free agents. It's too late now. Completely agree. You had 2 paths that I thought were at least defendable. Be aggressive, extend Dak, redo the contract, go add players, win now, or blow it all up. Doing neither is just delaying the inevitable of not being in as good a shape a year later. Also from Mark, if Dowdle is your best running back, that's beyond pathetic. I like Rico Dowdle. as like a sleeper, good backup. Like, I don't think he's ever going to be a 200 carry lead back. So you better have a good rotation. I don't think you have a good rotation at the moment. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. They are the leader in daily fantasy sports. Pick more, pick less. That's it. It's that easy. I always advise the flex play, by the way, unless you're doing some of their little special features. They've got demons and goblins. Demons higher projections for points or stats or whatever, and a higher payout. Goblins are lower, easier payout. I don't do the flex play when it is the goblin because I don't find the risk reward to be worth it there. I do it on the demon. When I'm doing a goblin, I just go all in. I do the power play, go for all 3 or all 4, whatever. Here's my NFL season-long prize picks. Again, I'm doing the flex play here. I'm also going the more thans across the board because the risk of injury is kind of already factored in. And if they stay healthy, they're going to hit it because all 4 numbers here are lower than what that player did last season. So more than passing yards from Mahomes and Dak, more than 9.5 CeeDee Lamb touchdowns, more than 12.75 Micah Parsons sacks. Let's go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Links in the comments and the description of today's show. For Mark Sawyer, I think Micah will play linebacker more under Mike Zimmer, the new DC. More, maybe. A lot, I still don't think so. Zimmer's seen the impact of a really good pass rush. I think he wants that guy out there. I think Micah's also just straight up better at defensive end than he is linebacker. I think you'll see him move around. You kind of saw more of that down the stretch this year. I think that part might continue. Yes. From Musa, if Lance is a preseason like Dak did his rookie year, how quick do you think the Joneses are to go all in with Trey? It's a good question. First off, I hope that happens. I would like to see good things from Trey Lance. I am not certain how likely it is that they would go all in based on the preseason. Remember, the Cowboys didn't go all in on Dak until the regular season got going. And that's when it's like, everyone's like, okay, we kind of have to move forward. The players were all for it, ownership was all for it, etc. So I hope he plays great in the preseason. I would also not presume that, a great preseason means to a lot. I've seen Cooper Rush be great in the preseason. He's had a good year or two. But I want to see more than that. I think, frankly, the minimum for me in Trey Lance is that he plays well in the preseason. Otherwise, I'm going to be really worried about him. Because if he can't beat the backups, even playing with backups, how's he going to beat the starters, even playing with starters? From Steven, will Martavis Bryant make the roster? Martavis Bryant, for me, is just kind of like, he's a throw in the goodie bag. I'm not expecting much. I mean, this is a guy who hasn't played football in over 5 years. His last game was 2018. He basically signed 5 years to the day the last time he played an actual NFL game. He's shown flashes. He brings the speed that this team doesn't really have beyond Ryan Flournoy. I think a full preseason is the best thing possible for him. So I will reserve judgment on him until we see him play even just a preseason game. He is 32 years old. That is a concern for me. To me, it's kind of like one of your UDFA wide receivers. If he plays great and makes the roster, awesome. If he doesn't, that's okay. You've got other guys that in the end would have beaten him out. So will Martavis Bryant make the Cowboys roster this year? Y for yes, N for no. Chris B, if Dak is not signed by the season, I really think this is it. I would probably agree with that. I would be surprised if they don't have a deal done by week 1. At that point, it's not going to get done during the season. And assuming Dak stays healthy, he would probably feel a bit disrespected. Not that I would blame him. And there'd be no team powers control to keep him hitting free agency. And if we're being objective here, at his age, his performance, his in theory good health, never seen that type of quarterback hit the open market. And Kirk Cousins was older coming off an injury. Peyton Manning was older coming off a potentially career-ending injury. Tom Brady was older, still played super well, though. Teams are desperate. Bo Nix went 13th overall. If the Dolphins don't pay Tua, if the Raiders did a Raider, they're going to be throwing a bag at Dak because that's going to save those regimes' jobs. You got to get it done by the season or else I think it's just going to be gone. Juan Ramos, what trade package would you give for Harris will be a fit in the Cowboys offense? I think he would be a decent fit. Owed a decent amount of money too, which is going to turn the Cowboys off because that's how they operate. I probably wouldn't move more than a 5th or a 6th round pick. I don't think the value's there from an efficiency, big play, which is what I crave. I crave those things. There are things he does well. He's a good power runner. Might be a decent fit in the scheme. Will be, gets decent success rates and short yardage stuff. But the big play that I think you're lacking, he doesn't really bring at this point, unfortunately. From Trev, would you trade for Courtland Sutton? Depends on what Denver wants. And I actually be surprised if Denver flipped Courtland Sutton because they just spent a first-round pick on Bo Nix. They want him to be the guy long-term. Trotting out, Marvin Mims and Tim Patrick and Josh Reynolds is not how you build, and Troy Franklin is not how you build a good receiving room for your quarterback. That's bad. Dude, they kind of need Courtland Sutton out there to be the number one. So you got to overpay for him, plus you got to give him a new contract or at least give him the 1 year that he likes, and that's probably a little bit too much for me. Which Cowboys trade ideas in the comments section? It could be Najee Harris, Courtland Sutton, somebody else all together. Sound off in the comment section right now. Daniel M., according to reports, Panthers and Gilmore are not close to a contract. I think it opens the door for us to bring back Gilmore. I'd give him 2 years for $6 million. Until he signs, doors open. I don't know how wide the door's open, but it is open. And I would do that deal. I have doubts that Stephon Gilmore would take 3 years, $3 million per year. Because if that was the case, I think Carolina would have already paid him. I think he's probably looking for a little bit more money. Maybe like $6 million per year, not $6 million total. At least that's how I read that. Steven, who's on the hot seat more, Sam Williams or Mike McCarthy? Definitely Mike, I think, still. I would be a little bit surprised if they were... Williams is on the hot seat too, but if you don't who's more I think that the bar to reach for McCarthy is higher than it is for Sam Williams. Williams has to keep his head on straight, learn the playbook, be quality, etc., and have a successful season and get some pressures. McCarthy's got to make it beyond the divisional round, and that's really hard to do when your team has actively made the roster worse. So I think McCarthy is the correct answer there. If you guys haven't already, hit that sub button for more free Dallas Cowboys YouTube videos. It's youtube.com/@CowboysTV. Free Cowboys videos right now. Jimmy, will Jordan Lewis hold down the slot on defense? I think he's a bust. Kind of don't get the bust part. He has had 3 contracts now at Dallas and has been a good nickel corner. You're paying him nothing. I feel confident about Jordan Lewis holding down that nickel spot. That foot injury he came back from was a disaster. And he came back and played well. In theory, he should be even better another year removed from it. So I feel confident in Lewis in there in the nickel. From Ratio, a $5 super chat. Najee Harris, what did I miss? We did break it down earlier on a previous video, I should say. There's also a mailbag question on it. A reporter who's not a reporter, just throws shit at a wall, had said, the Cowboys trade partner for Najee Harris, and fans decided to give him a 4th-round pick. I don't think he's available. I'm not trading a 4th-round pick for him either. But the Cowboys are going to be linked to every single running back that comes available. Every single one of them. They will be linked to Dallas because they are in a shaky spot along the offensive line, or in the backfield, excuse me. All right, non-Cowboys question of the day. Who is winning the 2024 rap battle? D for Drake, K for Kendrick. I think it is very much Kendrick. I think his disses have been better. And look, Drake, no, Kendrick didn't mention Millie, but you did. I know that Twitter was talking about Millie, but you mentioned her. That's not a good look. I'll get some shout-outs here. Matrix got K. Mark's got D. Alejandro's got D. Carlos, Brandon have K. Dominator has K. I think that Kendrick dropping 2 disses in like a 48-hour or 3 in a 48-hour span was incredible. I loved it. My wife and I have not talked about the latest Drake response. We're both on Kendrick is winning, but neither of us having a dog in this fight. Ecuador man says Tupac. Also yes, but he's still alive. I also did not like that part of Drake doing the AI. I didn't care for that one. I thought that was kind of lame. Mm-hmm. Okay, so no loop. That's fine. Someone's saying Nas in there. Big winner was J. Cole for getting out of that feud real quick. He kind of tossed a grenade and ran away. Like, I'm out. Keep the comments coming. D for Drake, K for Kendrick. Seabass makes a good point. I think they're making better music than they have in years prior. Funny, it takes the beef. Food Review says Drake baited Kendrick. I don't know if I believe that, though. I know that's what Drake's claiming, but Drake spent a lot of time in that one music video. Like, it was a good music video. A lot of production in there. But if you were baiting Kendrick, wouldn't you have, like, filmed that shit and posted it? Like, Drake would have won the feud if he had any evidence that he baited Kendrick beyond, like, embracing the internet theory. Because I don't know if I don't know if he's clever enough to pull that off. He still doesn't get the Mother Eyes Sober lyrics. He's wrong on his interpretation of that. Like, I don't think Drake can pull that off. Because if Drake had had a filming session or anything of like, or even photos, whatever, of like, yeah, here's the plan, like getting together, filming and like going through the plan and filming it and posting that, he'd have won. But he didn't actually post anything, which makes me think that there probably were some leaks in his camp. Daniel says I like Drake's music better and Kendrick is meaner. I do think Kendrick is meaner. And when you're in a rap battle, you have to win the diss battle. I think Kendrick has won that. Mark, $2 super chat. Thank you, Mark. Aloha, Tom. Hope the family and brother Jeremy are well. Everyone's doing great, Mark. I appreciate that one. Lenny V23 says, confident in a 2025 rebuild to have a top 3 receiver and a top 3 defensive end. What are the options at quarterback and head coach in 2025? That's kind of my concern. Trey Lance. If the Dolphins say that the Dolphins don't pay Tua, you can pay Tua $55 million. But then why wouldn't you just do that with Dak? You know? Like, that kind of like defeats the whole purpose to an extent. If the Dolphins do pay Tua, let's say Dolphins pay Tua, Lions keep Goff, Packers pay Love, Dak goes to the Raiders. You're picking 20th, whatever. You're not in the good quarterback range unless can he pick a draft class, and that doesn't normally work well. So you kind of don't have the quarterback path unless Lance plays really well. And also, do you know what talented young coaches want these days? The quarterback to be established. You keep seeing these young wonderkind OCs like Ben Johnson, I'm good at my spot, I'm not going to go. If you had Dak under contract, this would be a much more appealing job because there's stability at quarterback. Because for most people, you win 10 to 12 games every year, you're a playoff team, that's job security. That's a little bit different in Dallas, but, you know, most coaches, they know they get like 3 years. They don't want to spend 1 or 2 of those years rebuilding. I don't know how, if it plays out the way it might, where, you know, you win 10 games, you lose Dak, you let Mike go. I don't know how appealing this job is. Because the quarterback spot matters a lot. Even a Chargers team is like kind of retooling, they have their quarterback. It's dicey. Nick Warren, are we better or worse than last year? Do we have a chance of playoffs or Super Bowl? You definitely have a chance at playoffs, and I think you will be a playoff team. That gives you a chance at a Super Bowl. But I think you're worse on paper than what they were last year. So I would agree that you're worse off, so it hurts your chances. That's why, legitimately, I kind of feel bad for Mike. You guys know I have not been very pro Mike McCarthy on this show. I feel bad for Mike. He's kind of being set up for failure. That sucks for him. That's why there's a lot of unhappy, or at least disappointed people in that building, because there's just not any commitment coming right now. None. Chris B. Zimmer will be the next head coach if Dak leaves. Last go. Zimmer's a real candidate. I have it on pretty good authority that if they had fired Mike, Zimmer would have been a candidate this year as well. Like the Jones of Mike. So that's as it kind of freezes a little bit on our end. So apologies for that there, folks. To recap, in case it got cut out there, they would have interviewed Zimmer if they'd fired Mike this year. So it's very possible. It's very possible. Last call on this one, the largest super chat, individual super chat. Right now it's $10 from Mark. Gets to pick a segment for a future live show. We are like, two people have not said what they want to do yet, so we are kind of playing catch up on that front, so keep that in mind there, folks. But largest individual super chat on today's show gets to pick a segment for a future live show. So stay tuned for that. We'll announce the winner after this upcoming cut. We're going to break down the Cowboys depth chart here. If you want a way too early 53-man roster projection video, then show us you do by sharing today's video right now. There are a couple of roster spots open as of filming for the Dallas Cowboys, but we're going to break down where things currently sit on the Cowboys depth chart, position by position. That begins at quarterback, where there are just 3 players, although I would fully anticipate somebody's got to come in just to even be the camp arm for the rookie minicamp. So I wouldn't read too much into that one. Dak Prescott is your established starter. Cooper Rush has shown he can be your backup quarterback, and it's all about Trey Lance this camp and preseason. Lance is going to get so many reps in the preseason. Frankly, I might only play him outside of like a series or 2 for Rush. I would let Lance get all the experience that he needs, unleash the offense, see what he can do. Because he's in the final year of his deal. You haven't seen him yet. You'll want to know what you can get out of Trey Lance. The preseason will be our first look at that. The running back room, I will maintain, is not in very good shape. You got 7 guys if we include, or 8 guys, excuse me, if we include Hunter Lipke as the fullback, H-back hybrid there. The leading rusher last year of the guys in our roster was Ezekiel Elliott. It was at significantly less than 4 yards per carry. Rico Dowdle was semi-effective. Royce Freeman was semi-effective. Deuce Vaughn didn't get to play very much. Malik Davis was on the practice squad most of the year. Nate Pete is a UDFA who was a backup at Missouri. This running back room scares me. Running backs don't matter as much as other positions, but this is the worst room in football. I think that's pretty clear. So who is RB1 for this team? EE for Ezekiel Elliott, RD for Rico Dowdle, RF for Royce Freeman. You can type in Small for Deuce Vaughn, or comment for somebody else, maybe even somebody not on the roster. Your top 2 receivers are well established. CeeDee Lamb, Brandin Cooks. Some of the guys fighting for depth roles probably going to include rookie Ryan Ford, who I am excited to see in the preseason. I want to see how he fares. Jalen Cropper, Martavis Bryant, Racey McMath, Tyron Billy, not White Shoes Johnson, David Durden, Corey Crooms, and Cam Johnson, the UDFAs from this past year's class. I am most intrigued by the battle for wide receiver 3. Jalen Tolbert has the edge from that perspective. He has caught more passes. He's done more in the offense beyond just being the fast slot gadget player. If you're going to play Lamb a bunch in the slot, probably going to need a bigger body, so that's either Tolbert or Brooks. Brooks played a little bit last year, did show some decent things. Tolbert was not good on special teams. That's a little bit dicey for him, by the way, if he does kind of slide down the wrong way on the roster. Got to get somebody to emerge. Ideally, it is Tolbert since he was a third-round pick. So rate this Cowboys roster for me. Kind of Madden rating style. So 1 to 99 because it can't be 100 in Madden. How do you rate the Cowboys roster? It's the pinned comment on today's video. If the ad comes on YouTube, that is just fine. Ignore it. Instead, go vote. Rate the Cowboys roster Madden style. The tight end room. In good shape. You have Jake Ferguson, who's a clear-cut starter for you. You're banking on Luke Schoonmaker emerging as tight end 2 to make the pick less of a disaster. Tight end 3 is going to be a fun little battle, by the way. Peyton Hendershot. John Stevens was going to beat out Hendershot if he hadn't gotten hurt, but he's also coming off the ACL, so question mark there. Princeton Fant spends time on the roster. Brevin Spann-Ford, Alec Holler are UDFAs. That tight end 3, maybe tight end 4 spot, if they carry one, is up for grabs. The offensive line, there are, to an extent, starting spots open. Because they're not just going to give the job to BB and guy. They need those young guys to show they are worth it. But make no mistake, this is what they want the week 1 and week 18, 17 playoff time offensive line to be. Guyton, Smith, Beebe, Martin, Steele. They like Hoffman and Bass as backups. They did bring back Chuma Adoga. They drafted Thomas. I think Mike McCarthy was hyped up the Thomas pick. He's going to play guard. I think it's a better spot for him than tackle, by the way. And that leaves Earl Bostic, Awesome Richards, Matt Waletzko, Josh Ball fighting for roles. By the way, they're not going to play Martin or Bass that much in the preseason. Bass will play a little bit, at least a decent amount. Who's the backup at right guard? Is it Shepley? Or do they try Josh Ball or Matt Waletzko in there? Might matter as those guys fight for that last 9th or 10th offensive line spot. Now, the Ezekiel Elliott jerseys, you go to Fanatics, you're going to see all the 21 jerseys. You can find the 15s. You have to do a weird drop-down filter search thing. So instead, go to chatsports.com/Zeke15 jersey. They are available on Fanatics. We'll put that link in the comments section and the description of today's show. If you want the Zeke 15, that is the number he is wearing, head to the comments section or just type in chatsports.com/Zeke15 jersey. To defense we go. Micah Parsons, Tank Lawrence, Sam Williams, Marshawn Nealand, and Junior Fehoko are your top defensive ends. And that room is fine, especially if you get a breakout year from Sam Williams. I think in the end, I believe that Mike Zimmer will make or break Sam Williams. Either he will emerge as the potential gets realized, right? And he becomes a premier pass rusher, the guy that Dan Quinn thought the Cowboys could get in or get with and have. He becomes that, or the off-the-field stuff and the lack of attention to detail continues to rear its ugly head. The penalties continue, and he's in Zim's doghouse. X factor is how to sum up Sam Williams here. Along the defensive line, so Oso Odighizuwa, hoping for a full year of him being an impact player. We've seen flashes of it. We'll come back to Mozzie Smith. Chauncey Golston, I would expect, plays defensive tackle again, but we'll see. I like Justin Rogers in the Hankins role, just like be large. Big man, move little is a good theory for a nose guard. Carl Davis is a backup nose guard. Okay, I don't think he's very good. The only unit they added was Denzel Daxon. I wonder if they're not done at defensive. That's a thin room. Even if Mozzie Smith does the things he needs to do this year. You need Mozzie Smith to emerge as a legitimate starting nose guard in the NFL. He doesn't have to reach his potential in year 2, but he has to show something more positive. He has to be at the right weight. He has to help stop the run, make the occasional splash play, and show that, okay, in year 3, the breakout's coming, and he's startable in year 2. He was a first-round pick. You got to throw him to the fire and give him a chance. And if it doesn't work out, we'll have that conversation next year. So will Mozzie Smith bounce back this year? Y for yes, N for no. Sound off for me in the comments. To linebacker, a little bit better shape than what it was previously, although still a little bit thin. Eric Kendricks is in town as the Mike Zimmer guy to be the middle linebacker. He'll probably be ahead of Maurice Liufau. Could maybe be your long-term middle linebacker. We'll see. I hope so. Weak side linebacker, DeMarvion Overshown, I think should be over Damone Clark. This team was so excited about Overshown until he got hurt and missed the year. Clark, I think, will be better at weak side linebacker too, but he's kind of on the make or break timeline as well there. And then, linebacker 5 and 6, Buddy Johnson, Damian Wilson. You're going to get one of those UDFAs, Brock Moggensen or Jason Johnson to emerge? Maybe. I would not rule out the Cowboys looking at the linebacker room specifically along the waiver wire once roster cuts happen. Kendricks is not the same guy he was in his prime. You can even see that to an extent in the tackle numbers, in the TFL numbers. They've kind of slid a little bit there. He's lost a half step. But for what the Cowboys need, stability, I think it was a great pickup by Dallas. The cornerback room, I think you got some locks here. Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland, Jordan Lewis. I think Kalen Carson will make it. CJ Gordon probably gets cut and then gets brought back or goes to the practice squad, so there's 4.5. We'll see about Josh Butler. Maybe Mukwamu plays safety or corner. That's kind of a TBD there. You might see Josh DeBerry, who we'll get to in a second, play corner as well. Eric Scott or Deshaun Wright. I don't know if both those guys make the roster. Scott's got more time left on his contract, probably gets the edge at this point in his career. Also might come down to special teams. So I think that kind of last corner spot is going to matter, especially if injuries, unfortunately, happen again. We have all the latest and greatest Dallas Cowboys news that you need right here on the channel, so do not miss out. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/@CowboysTV. Now, I like the status of the safety room. Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson, Marquise Bell will be playing safe. That's the plan, at least, as opposed to linebacker, where he played well in a spot that he probably wasn't supposed to play as much as the Cowboys needed him to. Curious where Mukwamu gets played. I still think he might be a corner. That's where I had him graded coming out. Actually, I had him above Deshaun Wright in that class, and I feel like I was mostly right about that one. Wanye Thomas, I like him. Tweets a little bit too much and gets people off sides. It's always kind of funny, but I thought the football player, he could be your safety 5. Redwine is a veteran backup. Then some UDFAs, Amani Johnson, Julius Wood, Josh DeBerry as well. They did not sign Solo Turner as of last reporting, so do keep that in mind there. I think you're in good shape, really. I haven't said very much about this roster, but I think safety's in pretty good shape. Biggest need left for the Cowboys. Is it running back? Is it DT? Sound off in the comments section. Special teams-wise, it does look a little bit weird to have Turpin next to himself twice, but that is what it is. It's Brandon Aubrey, Brian Ager, Trent Sig. They'll probably cut Sig. They actually could cut Anger around Ross sometime, bring him back as a vested veteran, but he's not. He's going to be your punter. Sig will be your long snapper. Pretty well established. I'm very excited to see how John Fossil attacks these new special teams rules. So who gets paid first? The pin poll of today's video. It's 88 for CeeDee Lamb, 4 for Dak Prescott. I think this will be CeeDee Lamb, and I think you should have had this done a year ago, but they don't listen to me. Who gets paid first? 4 for Prescott, 88 for Lamb. Chris B., the final super chat of today's show. I think the playoffs will be harder to get with the schedule. It will be harder, but a 2-game swing is a lot still. Still puts you at 10 wins. So, yes, it will be harder, but I think it is still doable for the Cowboys. No loop today since the computer kind of froze in the middle of today's show. If you are a diehard Cowboys fan, though, this is the place for you guys. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/@CowboysTV for more free Dallas Cowboys YouTube videos. Do not miss out. Hit that sub button right now. Mark did come out on top in the super chat battle. So, Mark, I know you have my email. Hit me up, and we'll get a segment for you on a future live video. TBD if we're live Thursday. That's set to be, it sounds like, the schedule release for the NFL. So, might just be a couple VODs for you that day.